I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, November the 21st, brought to you in part by VITALIX. Since 1967, VITALIX has been providing excellence in animal health, including but not limited to all-American ID tags for all classes of livestock, both 1- and 2-piece tags. For more information, go to y-tex.com. Fed cattle are limiting cash feeders. We've seen our stockers and feeders gaining big ground here the last couple of weeks, but as we get into the second half of this week, we are seeing that these fed cattle prices are starting to slow up a little bit, and that is because we've hit a wall on our fed cattle. So we've been lower the last couple of weeks on our fed cattle after being 7 weeks higher. And now that our fed cattle are not gaining ground anymore, and most of that is due to the wholesale beef prices that have backed up, and there's just no leverage for cash sellers in the fed cattle market to gain any more ground or even hold the ground that they've got. Now we're starting to see these heavier feeders going right into the feedlot, failing to gain any more ground. And so that's natural that you see that happening, but there's no market limit on these peewee stockers. These guys are going after them, and I mean aggressively, especially those weighing under 4.5. They've got so many options. There's so many places to turn them out on winter forage and get really, really cheap gains on them. And then not only do you get that, you've cheapened those cattle up, you have possession of them in the spring to take them on to more forage or to background them in a lot or whatever you want to do. And so your buyers, your backgrounders are more comfortable pushing the limits on these peewee stockers, and we're seeing them do that, you know, well into the $4 up to and over $5 on a light 3 weight. But that's just what we're seeing in the sales here this week, and we've seen our real-time index kind of slow up to almost steady point, so we're not gaining ground anymore, and we've just about run out of those grass yearlings that really have the best performance in the feedlot. We're seeing more backgrounded in a lot type feeder cattle or big calves. A lot of big calves are also sneaking into those index weight groups, so we're not seeing the big gains on our big feeder cattle any longer, and unless we can turn this fat cattle market around and start getting back up to 190 on a live cash basis, we're likely not going to see our big feeders gain any more ground. But spent Wednesday at Springfield Livestock Marketing Center. They had a big calf special there, and then they had yearlings there too, and they sold over 3,000 head, which is a pretty nice run for them. I was really impressed with Springfield. They've got a lot of new young blood in there, and these are young guys that are aggressive. They know what's going on. They started the cattle on the money. There was no backing up, and we went on from there. So pretty impressed with Springfield Livestock Marketing Center. You can watch all their sales on DVAuction.com. Also on Wednesday evening was able to have dinner with some of the guys from Specialty Risk Insurance, and they were telling me that since we've seen the last few days the big gains on the back months of your feeder cattle futures, that they've found renewed interest in LRPs, and you would expect that. But also wanted to remind you guys that there will be no LRPs written on Friday here tomorrow because it is a cattle on feed day. So if you're thinking about getting something done there and you want to get it done this week, you're going to need to get it done here today on Thursday. But talk about your board on Wednesday. December live cattle futures were down 27 cents at 186.30. February was down 7 cents at 187.92. Your back months were a mixture of higher and lower, from 7 cents lower to 27 cents higher, but not a big movement day on your live cattle futures. November feeder cattle up 55 cents at 254.80, and they've pretty much reached now a good stopping place with your cash index level, so we're likely not going to see a lot of movement On your feeder cattle here today on Thursday, I mean, I could be wrong, probably will be wrong, but just waiting on the cattle on feed report to see what's going to happen here as we go into next week. But January feeder cattle up 32 cents at 252.32, and your back months were higher, but not much, from a nickel higher to 27 cents higher. Your grains, December corn was up 3 cents a bushel at 4.30 and a quarter. January beans down 8 cents at 9.90 and a half. And Kansas City hard red winter wheat for December was up 3.5 cents a bushel at 5.61 and three quarters. Look at your fat cattle trade, brought to you by Legacy Beef Cooperative, and they wanted me to tell you, remind you that the industry in your fed cattle marketing is set up, the whole model is set up to give the producers or the cattle feeders the bottom of the market. Legacy Beef Co-op is set up to give their producers the top of the market. So check them out at Legacy Beef Cooperative. Talk about a little drip of trade that happened on a direct basis, negotiated in your 5-area feeding region. Iowa sold 700 head on Wednesday. It was just some mixed bag cattle at 185, which is towards the bottom of last week's range or practical range in your northern plains. Nebraska sold 2,000 head, and the live price there was also 185 and 290 dressed, which was in last week's range but was not near the top. So we haven't really found out what's going to happen with your fat cattle this week. Probably wait until Friday. Be interesting to see if it happens before the cattle on feed report comes out or after the cattle on feed report comes out. We haven't seen a hoof trade in the southern plains. Did have some fat cattle auctions in the northern plains on Wednesday. Sioux Falls Regional Livestock in Worthing, South Dakota, sold steady to $1 lower on their fat cattle. Conventional fat sold from 184 to 190 and a quarter. Program cattle, a few drug-free and mostly non-implant cattle, some selling from 184 to 190.50. Also sold fat cattle at Glacial Lakes Livestock in Watertown, South Dakota. Had a lighter run than last week, about 520 head, including the cows, and the market was steady on their fed cattle. Conventional fed cattle selling from 183 to 186. Program cattle in Watertown selling from 186 to 188. And fat fed cows from 120 to 132. Look at your box beef cutout values, which had gained ground earlier in the week, but at midweek on Wednesday, your Wednesday afternoon, was down on choice and select, with select cuts down $2.40 at 306.39, selects down 92 cents at 270.99. Slaughter gained some ground here middle of the week with your estimated cattle slaughter up through the first 3 days of the week at 371,000. And that is 13,000 more than this point last week and 10,000 less than the same week a year ago up to this point. Talk about what else is going on. Punchy Pick of the Month contest is fun, guys. Don't forget to get your punchy picks in. If you get a picture and you got it on your phone, or a way that you can email it, email that picture to punchy@nationalbeefwire.com. Automatically entered to win the big grand prize on the Punchy Pick of the Month contest, which is a bunch of swag from Beaver Feed Company in Beaver, Oklahoma, Beaver County Stockyards also in Beaver, Oklahoma, National Beef Wire, Feeder Flash, and FerAppease, and you're going to get a whole case of FerAppease, which is the revolutionary product that is scientifically proven. Going to attach a video at the end of this Feeder Flash episode to give you some more testimonials about how well FerAppease works on weaning these calves, guys. Talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DVAuction late on Wednesday after all your feeder cattle auctions had concluded, sitting at 254.22. That was up just 4 cents, or basically steady with the end of Tuesday's trade. And your latest CME cash feeder cattle index has settled in right close to your index as it's starting to level out at 254.26. Big sale coming up here on Thursday, one that we don't normally talk about, but Navasota, Texas livestock is having one of their big wean calf special sales. It's going to start at 1 p.m. Local time central there in Navasota, Texas. They've got about 3,300 head there, weaned calves selling in pretty good sized bunches there, and you don't typically see that in Central Texas. Talk about your big feeder cattle auctions on Wednesday. OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, selling 8,800 head for their Tuesday and Wednesday sales there with the calves on Tuesday, feeders on Wednesday. They will not be having any auctions next week due to Thanksgiving holiday, so OKC West will be closed next week. But the market was good, especially on feeders there, but more of a commodity type market. Didn't seem to push your index levels up any, but feeder steers sold $2 to $5 higher. Feeder heifers are $3 to $7 higher. Calves were fully $8 to $12 higher. In OKC West and El Reno was your National Beef Wire stick out sale of the day. Just giving you a good test of the market there in the Southern Plains. They had 1,149 head. This is just your Wednesday feeder cattle auction. 1,149 head of 7-weight steers. They averaged 738 at 256.09. There are 1,850 head of 8-weight feeder steers in El Reno. They averaged 852 pounds at 250.5. Look at the heifers, 544 head of 6-weight heifers. Had a weighted average price of weighted average weight of 660, weighted average price of 242.15. 631 head of 7-weight heifers averaged 736 at 237.13, and 613 head of 8-weight feeder heifers, they averaged 827 pounds with a weighted average price of 226.94. Give you some individual quotes from all around the circuit. How about Albion, Nebraska? Albion Livestock sells 209 head, 956 pound steers at 255.60. Talk about a big group of cattle, and those are significant too. And that would have been in El Reno, Oklahoma. They had a big long string of feeder steers, 480 head in one whack. They averaged 834 pounds and bring 253. Give you a calf quote out of Sidney, Montana at Sidney Livestock, newly acquired DVAuction Broadcasting there. They had 54 peewee steers, weighed 416 and bring $4.13 a pound. Pretty impressive there. How about Hub City Livestock Auction in Aberdeen, South Dakota? Longtime DVAuction broadcaster there. They sell 69 steers, weighed 614 at 314. Thought that was impressive. How about going in your Midwest there where your farmer feeder country? How about Decorah, Iowa at Decorah Sales Commission? They sell 59 big steers, weighed 920 pounds at 264.50. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Wednesday in your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of Platte Livestock Market in Platte, South Dakota, had 100 head of 508 pound fancy steer calves, and they bring 371. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.
So my dad was a veterinarian growing up. Always been on the ranch here. I love the ranch life and I like the medicine. Having my own herd, my clients come in and say, I want to do what you do. Or they'll see something in a magazine, what do you think of this? Figuring I've already probably played with it on my own herd. So I saw FerAppease and thought, well, this is going to be foo-foo dust. But I will try it because I know some clients are going to say, what do you think of it? Have you tried it? So I weaned my first set of calves and I did the whole herd, 100% of them. And we were working cattle and I walked out. They'd been weaned the day before. We process them the morning after we get them home. We haul them home from about 20 miles away. So after I'd done the first group of calves that I had processed before, the steers, they were all laying down or they were at the bunk. And I'm like, oh, you guys got to come out and see this. And so they all come out and they're like, oh, that's kind of cool. But we'd done the whole group, everybody was quiet, and I'm like, okay, so we need to split this baby up. And so the second time we weaned, I did my steers with the FerAppease, and I skipped the heifers. And so I was kind of monitoring First day, the steers cleaned the bunk. The heifers, I bet they ate 25%. We had to scatter it through the bunk, fluff it up. They didn't even eat enough to refill the bunk. The next day, and I kind of watched to see, the heifers definitely never settled down. They were in and out, they were circling, they didn't care to eat. The steers, they'd go to the water tank, they would drink. They didn't just leave because everybody else leave. They meandered around the pen by themselves. They weren't circling, and the appetite was so much better. And so then I saw this on the next day, and I videoed that I pulled up to the bunk, and all the steers were at the bunk. 6 of the heifers were at the bunk, and when he pulled up with the feed wagon, all the heifers ran to the back side of the pen who had not received the FerAppease, and the steers backed up about 12 feet, and as soon as he had moved on down the bunk, they were back at the bunk eating. And I'm like, this is really, really cool. I'm kind of curious to see what would happen if I treated the calves while we were processing them with FerAppease, and see when we got to the summer pasture whether they would be as reactive up there as if I had not used the FerAppease. And so we hauled them, and the calves, they pair up better, they're more calm, they aren't circling pens when they can't find mama. They're quieter, you hardly hear the calves bawl at all. A little bit of talking, but it seems like when I have done that, when mama comes or the cows start to cry, the calves hear her and they pair up easier. I did have a client who, after using it last year, thinks everything that he buys will receive it, which I think it's a no-brainer.